Well, welcome back to Wake Up America Weekend. I'm Michael Grimm alongside Krysia, Lenzo. Krysia, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here.
Appreciate you filling in for Sarah. Great to have you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now former President Donald Trump, it's a chaotic week for him in court, taking a stand on Wednesday and ultimately being fined $10,000 before storming out of the courtroom and not returning. The judge in that case is forcing Ivanka to testify, and that's the New York fraud case against her father.
So for more on that, let's bring in our weekend panel, Executive Director of America First Works, author of Beat the Elites, Ashley Hayek, and political commentator and columnist for the Washington Examiner and New York Post, Ian Haworth. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Ian, let's start with you and get your reaction to Judge Arthur Engeron ruling that Ivanka must testify even though she was dismissed from the case.
Well, all of this is part of the greater theater that is the plan for the 2024 election. You know, I don't know whether Trump did any of these things he's accused of. At this point, I really don't care, because none of this is about Trump. All of this is about trying to cover for the fact that Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel. All of this is about the election. None of this is about justice. If it was about justice, you'd see a lot of Democrats in court right now as well. And so I find this very hard to take seriously, especially when dozens of Americans are trapped in Gaza right now, and Joe Biden decided to spend the weekend at the beach. Like, that's what I care about right now. I think the fact that America is focusing on trying to take down his greatest political adversary is disgusting, and it says everything about how panicked they are about the election.
Yeah, you know, Ian, I think it's a lot of people out there that have the same sentiment. You know, where's the president at a time we're basically at war with Iran, you know, not officially yet, but we're striking Syria. You know, they're striking our military bases. We know it's Iran's proxies, basically the Middle East on fire, and Joe Biden's away for the weekend. But Ashley, let me ask you this. Donald Trump got fined again. It went from $5,000 to $10,000, and then he ultimately stormed out of the court. What do you make of this?
You know, I think the points that were just made were exactly right on. Between the court case in D.C. and New York, the strategy for the Democrats is really quite clear. And to avoid a fair election against the candidate who is polling over 40 points ahead of every other Republican candidate and pulling ahead of the current president, they want to take away his free speech and keep him tied up in the courts. It's expensive, it's time consuming, but you know what? It's also unconstitutional, and it's election interference. And to be able to comment on what's happening in the Middle East and to be able to balance multiple lawsuits and to be 10 steps ahead of the current president, I would be pretty upset getting slammed with those gag orders that are unconstitutional and storming out of the courtroom as well.
I would agree, and especially at this particular point in time, election interference. This is a former president. This is someone who's running for president. To stop him from speaking is definitely problematic.
And a massive lead in the primary for the Republican nomination.
I think it's no coincidence. But Ian, it's unlikely that any sort of gag order is going to stop the former president from speaking his mind. This is now the second time he's been fined for violating the order. Is the judge just going to keep rolling these out, or is he going to try him and throw him in jail?
I would be somewhat surprised if they threw him in jail. Again, a lot of this is theater. I think there are a lot of people, Democrats in places like New York, who just love the image of trying to throw gag orders on Trump. You've also got people being picked for juries who are delighted at the opportunity to throw Trump in jail. You know, this is really the misaligned and misshapen justice system that we have, is that it's all based on power and it's incredibly political. And so I think anyone who could get the chance to boost their own election efforts is going to try and push themselves as an anti-Trump figure, because that's what gets you votes in blue places like New York, California. They don't really care about justice. They care about taking down the big bad orange man. And that's what they're trying to do right now. And I don't think Trump will exactly be taken down with these gag orders. I don't think anyone on earth is capable of shutting him up, for better or for worse. And in this case, obviously for the better. And so I think it's just, again, all about the narrative, all about pushing Trump as Trump the criminal. Trump is drowning in all of these indictments, rather than look at what Biden is doing, because they're going to keep this going as long as they can. They would desperately love to charge Trump with something that then during the election, all they can talk about is, you are voting for a felon. That's the image they want here. And we need to be doing everything that we can to fight out against that.
Yeah, it's a good point, Ashley. It's also a great distraction from all of President Joe Biden's legal problems, right? So when you look at Joe Biden, House Republicans are demanding that the White House turn over information about the $200,000 check Joe Biden received from his brother. You know, in a letter sent to the White House counsel on Thursday, House Oversight Chair Representative James Comer probed the administration on the circumstances surrounding that $200 payment that James made to Joe on March 1st of 2018. There's that, and you'll also have the fact that Senator Grassley just came out saying he has information that more than 40 confidential sources came to the FBI specifically saying they had information. This is while Joe Biden was vice president, and they went to multiple FBI field offices, and it was FBI, Washington that discredited and wouldn't let them investigate. So is that what this is all about? In about 30 seconds, is this really just to take the spotlight off of Joe Biden and put it on Trump?
Since the moment Donald Trump rode down that escalator, the left has hurled accusation after accusation against him and his family. So my question is, when is Hunter Biden going to testify? When are they even going to charge Hunter Biden? It's not just Joe Biden. It's that entire family is completely crooked, and it's been proven time and time and again. But you know what? We also saw that Hunter Biden got the white glove treatment. Meanwhile, they're dragging Ivanka Trump and harassing her, putting her in front of a court, and doing the same thing to the boys, Don Jr. and Eric. It's wrong. It's complete injustice, and I think that this is just a complete. It makes us all look ridiculous. It makes our whole court system just look ridiculous.
It becomes a circus, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right, Ian, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.